You don't ever want to dunk on them with all of the new information that we've now
I would
discovered?
love to, but I was in so much hot water for my stance on COVID that I didn't really say much about it. But as soon as I resigned, I definitely started to weigh in.
Well, they owe you an apology.
To me, felt like such a trespass of what I thought the party stood for, free speech. We were banned from TikTok. It essentially makes misgendering a criminal act. So we're suing the state of Colorado. If we can be made to utter this lie, what can't we be convinced of? It's
right.
terrifying.
Once a national champion gymnast and later named Forbes' most influential CMO at Levi's, Jennifer Sey is now the founder and CEO of XXXY Athletics. She's using her voice to defend women's sports and challenge corporate woke culture and so much more. Jennifer Sey joins me now. We're so happy to have her in Nashville.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jennifer, you and I kind of first got acquainted more so in the COVID discussion and you being very passionate about that. But as it goes, that was a woke renaissance for you. And then now with XXXY, I think that's an extension of that. So I think it's so important that someone like you, who's so influential in the business community, to really step out and defend not only individual rights and liberties and talking about your family and your circumstance during COVID in San Francisco and all that, but then extend that to defending women's sports, another passion project for you. What made you decide to step out and say it's time to create a brand around this?
Yeah, I resigned from Levi's in 2022 and left the Democratic Party at that time. I was just COVID to me felt like such a trespass of what I thought the party stood for, free speech. You might laugh, but at one point they did, caring for the vulnerable. I mean, children were harmed, the poor were, it was horrible for the most vulnerable populations. And so I just could no longer be associated with the Democratic Party. And I had been observing what was happening in women's sports. I was in so much hot water for my stance on COVID that I didn't really say much about it. But as soon as I resigned, I definitely started to weigh in. And I met Riley not long after the 2022 NCAA finals, where she had to compete against a man, Will Thomas. And I just got the idea that a brand could really influence the conversation because, politics and legislation are downstream from culture, and we were losing the cultural battle. And brands really do influence the culture, whether we like it or not, they do. And so I felt like if I could create a brand that made it cool to stand up and say this very basic thing, women deserve their own sports and spaces, that could have an impact. And that's what I'm good at, so why not do that?
Right. Well, what I think is so great about your brand, XXXY, is a lot of conservatives have brands. That's nothing new. Conservatives want to have an alternative, and it's great, and we support all of them. But taking your know-how from being a legitimate force in mainstream branding, that Levi's brand, and taking what you know and then translating it into a brand that I wouldn't even say is necessarily conservative, but it is independent-minded. It fights for the ideals of the conservative movement. That, to me, is what differentiates you.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I don't want to throw any shade at any of the brands that do come, land more squarely in the conservative. But my lens is I want to make world-class product that can compete with all of, the very best brands in the world, and I want to create world-class content that forces our eye and trains our eye on the girls and the young women, because the culture is saying, look at these boys. These poor boys, they're meaning the boys who think they're girls. They're discriminated against. We all need to look at them and feel sad for them. I'm saying, no, we need to look at the girls and the young women who have trained their whole lives and are now forced off of the podium because a male is taking their spot. So I feel really capable of making that kind of content that's going to create an emotional response and making really world-class product. It's not merch. And so that is sort of
You said something that I think is so important. It's not merch. So we love when people create merchandise. I've done it in the past too, and it's great, but that's very message forward. But this to me is an equal balance between style, fashion, all the things that you want from a mainstream brand and a message. But it's not merch, I think, is a really important point to make.
Merch is like a t-shirt with a slogan that maybe you make and sell on Etsy, or maybe you make, I don't know where they get them made, Chinese. It's like, who knows? This is, we're building an actual supply chain. We're building world-class product. We have a designer. We're not just leveraging a T-shirt off the shelf and slapping a slogan on it. And we have really high-performance athletic wear. I mean, people have worn it in marathons. This will go the distance with you. So I'm building a brand. I'm not just making merch to kind of get the message out there or not just to make a buck. Like, I want to influence the conversation. There is not another athletic brand standing up for women. It's ridiculous. There will be no women's sports if we don't nip this in the bud.
What I think is so shocking about that is I remember earlier on, I guess, in the early days where Trump was elected the first time, when you would still consider yourself a Democrat, I'm sure.
100%.
So this is 2016, 2017. I remember the biggest battle cry then for the left was women's rights. And I remember the Women's March, and I remember the pink hats and all this. And that was their first message, was that Trump is a sexist, Trump is a misogynist, we are women, hear us roar.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that was centered around abortion, but it was an extension of Me Too, right?
Yes.
So to flash forward from 2016, 2017, when that was the left's message, was very much the women in Congress wearing a certain color for Me Too and all this.
Yeah.
And then you go to just 2020 through current day, and the battle cry from the left is not we are women, it's, well, we are down with the patriarchy, except for when the patriarchy thinks it's the matriarchy, and then now we stand up for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue even during COVID, like I said, what the Democrats did during COVID was such a trespass of their own stated values and why I had been a Democrat. And that includes, I mean, women left the workforce in droves because they had to stay home and take care of children who had no school. And they still haven't gotten back into the workforce to the degree that they were before. It was bad for women, too. And this is just a continuation. Now, the left would say, as you know, trans women are women. They are not. They are male. So they would say feminism includes men, I guess. I mean, to me, it's a men's rights movement. This is about giving the men who claim to be women what they want and allowing them to take the safety, privacy, and fairness away from women. The feminist position is my position, is your position. And they're, in fact, this is in fact a really broad-based coalition. I mean, there are radical feminists. I just was at a conference 2 weeks ago that was like a Rad Fem conference. These women are fighting for women's sex-based rights. So it's really interesting because you've got conservative women and you've got super far left-leaning women that have come together on this issue. And I, for one, resent as a woman thinking that the only thing we might care about is abortion. Right. Women's rights go so far beyond that. Even if I am, or we don't have to talk about choice, but like there's so much more than that. How dare you tell me that's the only thing I'm supposed to care about as a woman? That's ridiculous.
Well, I think it's so bizarre to me that the left has ceded women's rights and what I would consider this new wave of feminism to the right. They've said, we don't want it anymore. Women, you're on your own. And I think, I say the patriarchy, and every time I see somebody talk about trans this or trans that, I just say, long live the patriarchy. Because that's what it is.
That's why I said it's a men's rights movement. It's just bowing down to what these men want. They put on a dress and suddenly they can have whatever they want.
Right. And it's also about taking away opportunities from young female athletes, but also it's taking away their ability to feel secure and safe in their own spaces. And for me, even if you're not a female athlete, which I am not, or if you're not a parent of a female athlete, which I am not, for me as a woman, I don't want to be changing in front of a man. And I don't care if he thinks he's a woman, and I don't care if he dresses like a woman, and I don't care if he's got the best makeup in the world and, better hair extensions than mine. I don't want to change in front of a man. I don't want a man in my space. I don't want to look at the parts. I don't want them looking at my parts.
No.
And the fact that that's not even a line for the left is so bizarre to me. They can't even see that.
It's so crazy. And you know what makes it even one step worse is if any girl or woman stands up and says what you just said, they're told, be quiet. You're a bigot. You're a sexist, and you're a bigot, and you're a transphobe. We're telling girls and women to be quiet. How is that okay? I mean, think about because there are young women across this country, teenagers, who are standing up and pushing back, which I think is so inspiring and amazing. Now, not a single professional or currently competing Olympic level athlete has said anything, but high school girls across the country are standing up. And what they face, the pushback they face, it's just, And they don't stop. They're amazing. They're just so courageous. And if adults had half the courage that these girls do, this would be over tomorrow, because 80% of the country agrees with us. And yet the vast majority are silent because of the pushback you get and the name calling and the ostracizing. But who cares? Are we going to stand up for biological reality or not? Because in my view, this is the most basic human fact. Everybody, babies know the difference between men and women. We've known it since the beginning of time. If we can be made to utter this lie that a man who says he's a woman is a woman, what can't we be convinced of? It's
right.
terrifying.
And I would take that a step further. Why should we, as American voters, trust anybody who won't accept that basic fact? And even worse than that, even if they do privately accept it, won't stand up for that basic fact. How can I trust you to run the economy, to lead in policy-making decisions, foreign relations, immigration, anything? How can I trust you if you're carrying on this lie that men can be women, and not only just men can be women, but if they want to do it in their own time, whatever. But impede on women while they're doing it.
I know. How can we trust? If you don't know that, if you can't say what a woman is because you're not a biologist, like Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, or if you're Congressman Seth Moulton, who says, I don't want my daughters getting run over on the soccer field, and then you vote in opposition to protecting women's sports, you can't be trusted on anything. I mean, you're either stupid or a coward.
Yeah, you're
or
right.
Both.
You're right. Probably both. I want to take this back to your roots in San Francisco, though, because in many ways, California is the hotbed, the origin story of a lot of this. I always say everything bad really does start in California, and it metastasizes to the rest of the country. And I could name 20 things. Not only COVID, first to lockdown. I lived in LA at the time. I remember. So COVID, mass mail-in voting, illegal immigration, and then, of course, this, what I call bowing to the LGBTQ rainbow mafia death cult. It started in California. And I would argue that San Francisco, probably even more so than LA, is very beholden to this concept. And what's interesting to me to get your perspective on as somebody who considered themselves a Democrat and probably more on the liberal side of a lot of social issues. Are there liberals in San Francisco that they love everything about the LGBTQ, they love drag, they love all of this, but do they privately say, but when it comes to women's sports and spaces, we draw a line? Privately. Publicly, I know they don't, but privately.
That's a good question. Well, I haven't lived there in 4 years, and I really don't have any of the friends I used to have because of my COVID stance. So it's hard for me to say, but I'm going to venture a guess.
They haven't apologized to you for that now that we know that everything is bullshit?
No.
Oh, really?
Oh, no.
You don't ever want to dunk on them with all of the new information that we've now
I would
discovered?
love to, but I've just sort of walked away.
Well, they owe you an apology, but
they
yes,
do.
continue.
I mean, without an apology, there's no way forward, and I don't expect to get one. So, and then I just, beyond COVID, I then put the nail in my own coffin by saying men can't be women, because that's really a terrible thing you're not supposed to say. 70% of California Democrats, is my understanding, think that women's sports should be protected. Or 70% of Californians. Most of them are Democrats. So I think they do think it privately and don't say it publicly because they're afraid of their position is, well, we should just be nice. Like, sure, that's not right, but why don't we just be nice? And my point is, it's not nice. It's not nice to women and girls. Why don't we care about the women and girls? So they're just so browbeaten by the activists who are very loud and screeching and mean and nasty and deploy all kinds of horrible tactics. And I think most people are just afraid and think it's not worth it. And they'll just wait it out, and they'll wait for other people to do it. They'll wait for the rest of us to take the slings and arrows. And then when there's a good portion of people that have stood up, they'll stand up and pretend they always knew it.
Yeah. I don't see them coming around anytime soon. I thought this last election would have been the turning point.
I think it's a long time
It's
away.
not. But, I've heard this theory before, and I think it's interesting, and I want to get your take on it. So I believe that, especially being birthed in California, the gay rights movement.
Yeah.
The gay rights movement, of course, in 2008, the No Hate campaign, same-sex marriage, it really started there.
Yeah.
And in 2008, even President Obama wasn't bought into the gay marriage thing, right? But it was a shift that I think happened after that. And then most people, even conservatives, said same-sex marriage, whatever.
Fine.
Like, we don't care. And a lot of conservatives would consider themselves, even if they are religiously or faith-based, they would say, if you want to get married, who cares? but it was gay rights. And once they got the majority of Americans to get on board with that right, then they had to take it a step further because the money dried up, because the activism dried up, because the nonprofits and the charities and the philanthropy and the grants dried up, because there was nothing to fight against anymore.
Right.
People were like, yeah, be gay, we don't care. Get married, we don't care.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, what can we now do to just push the needle a little bit more, push people into an area of discomfort? And they decided that the LGB, that wasn't enough. They had to add the T.
It's true. And really, I think these two groups have nothing to do with each other. And in fact, I think there are a lot of organizations, and I certainly know a lot of people who are in this fight with us for biological reality. They think the L, the G, and the B should get a divorce from the TQIA plus whatever all the other letters are. Look, I was very involved. I lived in San Francisco. I worked in the fashion industry. I marched to, gay pride parades. I was involved. I had a lot of friends in the gay community. All they wanted really was to be left alone, to be able to, get a job, not be fired, get married, build a family. And that's stabilizing for communities. So I think that's why in the end, a lot of conservatives did support it. This is not the same. This is not, I want to be left alone. This is, I want more rights than you. This is not equality. This is, I want to take rights away from women and girls. What do I lose if gay guys get married? Nothing. I lose nothing. But if men can pretend they're women and come into my spaces, or worse yet, be in women's prisons, be in girls' high school locker rooms, our safety collectively is taken away, not to mention material reality. So I think there's a lot of people in the gay community that are coming to the realization. I think people on the left were ill-equipped to kind of understand and battle this because those nonprofits that needed to fundraise, they used the same tactics, the Born This Way tactics. But it's not the same. If you look at sort of the gender-affirming care model, I mean, that is just kind of completely insane. That is saying a child has some sort of disconnect. I don't even know if I buy that, but between their mind and their body. And so we are going to butcher and carve up their body to match their mind. There's no other mental illness that this is the case.
Do you think that's also really, to me, I find some real cognitive dissonance there, because for so many years, the gay community and the LGBT community has told us that you're born this way, right? But now their whole argument is the way that they were born is wrong. We must fix.
Well, that's the thing, is the whole thing is so crazy, Tommy, because they're saying it's not wrong, but what's in your mind is truer than what your body is. I mean, it's so messed up and ridiculous.
It's saying you're in the wrong body, change it, fix it.
Well, the irony of that, too, is the only way I can explain that. So this is coming from the left, which is notoriously atheist, right? They're sort of describing a soul, that like a person has a gendered soul, and we need to change the body to match this soul. So it's like this weird religious thing. The whole thing, the whole movement, it doesn't hang together. The logic doesn't hang together. You can, they say sex isn't binary, but if it's not binary, then why do you have to cut off your parts to be the other sex, supposedly? Like, that doesn't make sense. And then there's people in it that are non-binary that say they're nothing or both or 10 different, like, none of it makes any sense. But years ago, when I first moved to San Francisco, we called them trannies. There were trannies, and they didn't think they were women. They thought they were men in a dress. Fine. They didn't want to come into women's rooms. They didn't want to compete in women's sports. Fine. No one cared. It's like the whole world has gone mad, and women are the ones bearing the brunt. Although I would say gay people are harmed too, because young gay children who are gender nonconforming are the ones that told you must be the opposite sex.
Right. And not allowed to just figure that out on their own, which is so weird to me. But this has gone beyond just ideas and ideologies. This has gone to legislation. You're in Colorado now, and there's legislation. It's not the only place, but it's certainly something that you're battling, and it's the act they added on to the Discrimination Act to include transgenders, and a lot of that has to do with child custody, and if one parent affirms the gender and the other one doesn't in a custody battle, the gender affirming parent has more rights or more sway. But it's also going to impact your business because you openly say men are men and women are women and women's sports are for women. So you're taking action against it.
It passed just this summer. It essentially makes misgendering a criminal act. So as you stated correctly, that applies in custody cases, arguably not even in if the parents are separated. If a married couple won't affirm the child's gender identity, that child can be taken from the home. So there is a lawsuit right now pending against the bill because it makes misgendering a crime, and that would mean that parents lose rights. But it also applies to public accommodation. So if I'm speaking publicly, which I do all the time in Colorado, or we make ads where we use correct pronouns, I've essentially committed a crime in the state of Colorado by calling a he a he.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a free speech violation. Like, take this issue out of it. It is compelled speech. It is saying you will speak this way, you will use our language, you will preach our religion, and we don't do it. So we're suing the state of Colorado.
Well, good for you, because that's the only way that this is going to change. And it's got to impact enough people, that enough people, even if they disagree with the premise of your argument, understand how ridiculous it is. It's weird to me to see that state go that way and go that extreme. And there are so many like it. Minnesota's another one, a trans sanctuary state and all these things. And it sounds good to be a trans sanctuary state on its face until you dig into what it actually means and the erosion of parental rights and religious freedoms and common sense and basic rights, especially for women. It's so bizarre. Another thing,
but all these states are. I'm getting more hopeful. I agree with you that it's going to take a while. I think some of us got excited, or some people on the right got excited. You know, Trump signed the executive order back in February. Executive order is not law, so we know we need to do better than that. But the people who are pushing back are not going to give this up without a fight. So I think we have a battle on our hands, and I think we shouldn't get complacent, and we need to keep fighting. And I get messages every single day from people saying, for instance, I love your brand, but I'm too afraid to wear it.
Yeah.
So to me, that just, I have empathy, kind of. It just says to me that we have a ways to go, because until people are like, yeah, I'm going to wear that. I don't care that it has that logo on it. That's what I think. That's what most people think. Until we get there, you know, we've got a battle on our hands.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's certain places in the country where that may very well be the case. Obviously, California being one, and other extreme states being, obvious. But it's interesting to me how many people that even are in conservative places, they feel that they can't speak truth, or they can't have common sense, or they can't defend women in women's sports. It's really a bizarre phenomenon, even though we know how many people actually support integrity of women's sports and spaces.
Yeah, the left's tactic on this, the activist tactics are really cruel. Look at what J.K. Rowling has endured, They're cruel and violent, and we're seeing that now. And I think the other piece of it is that the legacy media is populated by essentially people who are aligned with the 20% activists. So it gives a miscommunication of where the general public is, because the headlines would still position you and I as bigots and transphobes, even though we have the mainstream view, which is you can't be a woman just because you snap your fingers and say so. But you know what I mean? Because the headlines in the New York Times, in all of the legacy media, are aligned with this sort of small bullying activist minority, and so I think that scares people.
Yeah, it might, but it's still weird to me how many people are afraid to just speak the truth on this issue, and I'm wondering if part of it is a need, and I think some people are well-meaning. They believe that they're standing up for a marginalized community. Agreed. I think some people really do believe that, and they want to be nice, and they want to be inclusive, and I believe that they are well-intentioned. Even if I disagree with the premise, I think they're well-intentioned. But I think there are some people that crusade so hard for this issue, again, just to be anti-Trump and to be anti-conservative. It's like, well, the conservatives say this, so we're going to go so far the other way. It's not unlike the crime crisis or the immigration crisis.
Right.
They might understand that all these things are a problem. They don't like crime. They don't like illegal aliens, taking over their communities. But they will not say that because that would in some way be ceding ground to conservative thought.
I think that's right. But there is no cohesive ideology. It is just anything Trump says is bad. Or anything that goes against the American project is bad. It's like they want to cause this disintegration. I'll give you two competing issues. So the people who are fine with men claiming to be women and LGBTQ, all of it, are also in the Queers for Palestine
Yeah.
crowd. Like these two things are directly at odds. And the only thing that connects them is they break down Western values.
Yeah.
I mean, they go against Western values. These two groups, Hamas and the tranny, they don't go together.
No.
So there's no cohesive ideology other than destruction, I would say.
But these groups are willing, they're willing to collaborate if it meets the end goal, which to your point, you know, radical Islam is totally fine with partnering with LGBTQ, Antifa, BLM, whatever they have to. This whole Marxist, cultural Marxism, they're all fine with that, so long as it meets the end goal, which is, as you said, it's not only that, it's the destruction of the American family, too. And I think a lot of this has also been born and bred to remove kids from their family or their parental structure and make them feel like they are, you know, a child of the collective. And that's a really vulnerable place to put kids, but that's also my part of the goal.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think the average everyday American who's taking these ridiculous stances and just going along doesn't necessarily see that. I think you're right. They just think I'm being nice and kind and inclusive. They don't understand necessarily the larger project. But I think you're right. If we break down the American family, I mean, that's the sort of central unit in our culture. That's how you raise healthy children. We lose everything. I mean, that is the Marxist project, is to connect an individual more to the state than the family. Of course. Yeah.
Do your kids get backlash because of what you do and how outspoken you are?
Well, I have 4 children. 2 are older. They live on their own in New York. And then 2 are younger, so I don't think they would know if they were getting it. I don't know. I mean, they don't totally align with my views, but we're still very close, and we just find other things to talk about.
Right. But it's a big part of what you do, and it's your career. So I'd imagine. I always think about that just because I know how much, you know, hate and vitriol I get. Obviously, I know Riley Gaines being a new mom, she's going to get it, her kids are going to get it. And I always think about that. You know, for me, I don't have kids, so I think about how my parents are impacted, and I think about how my husband is impacted, and for his career, how the things I say impact him unfairly, but they do. And that's usually when you decide to do something big and bold like that, that's a calculation that you have to make, and you decided to make it, but it doesn't come without its consequences.
No, I mean, look, back since 2020, when I decided to take a stand around, you know, the ridiculous draconian COVID policies, it's definitely been hard for my older children. I think that was harder, honestly, because they were home and it was San Francisco, and no one was saying the things that I was saying. No one was saying what my husband and I were saying in March 2020. No one was saying, open everything up. This is ridiculous. You can't shut us down. If you shut us down, it's never going to open. I mean, no one was really saying it until the summer, you know, even in conservative circles. So we were.
Well, I was saying it, but I was
you
very much so demonized. Yeah.
I mean, you remember not many people until maybe like May, and to say it in San Francisco. So that was definitely hard for my kids, and we've had our conversations and worked it out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it warped people's brains, a lot of it. I mean, that became in some cases that became more of a passionate topic and a point of contention than even a presidential election. COVID was a big deal for people. It split families.
Yeah, my family's definitely split.
The masking and the vaxxing and everything.
It was insane. I can't believe that it's still not. I mean, I know there's a lot going on in the world, but can you imagine a bigger event in our lives than the government shutting everything down? You couldn't go to work. You couldn't go to the store. You couldn't send your kids to school. You couldn't go to church or synagogue. You couldn't do anything for over a year. In San Francisco, it was like 18 months. I couldn't take my daughter to the playground, outside. We couldn't go to the beach. People got arrested for surfing. This happened across the country and around the world. And we're pretending like that was normal?
Yeah. And nobody was ever held accountable for it either.
And not to mention the censorship. The censorship of regular everyday people. I mean, we would do rallies, and every time we'd open the schools rallies, we'd post anything on Facebook for people to come. It was gone instantly. Not to mention the doctors and the scientists that were censored so that they could manufacture consensus that this was the only way forward. There has been no reckoning around this, which to me means it could happen again. So I I haven't stopped talking about this. I'm making a documentary film, which is just about done right now, called Generation COVID, which is about the impact to the children. Because there hasn't been a reckoning, and I feel like there won't be until we have new journalists who weren't complicit. Because the journalists I hold most accountable. They're the fourth estate. They're supposed to hold power to account. And instead, they published press releases from the government and from Big Pharma as if it was news. Why aren't people upset about this? I don't really understand it.
Yeah, those same people are really upset that RFK Jr. might remove food dyes, even though that was something that California fought to do and was passionate about. But now that RFK Jr. wants to do it and he's friends with Trump, now it's a problem.
Well, they're also really upset that Kimmel was taken off the air for 4 days.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, how many thousands of people were just let back on to YouTube because they were kicked off because they said, hey, maybe it was a lab leak and not a wet market thing. Or maybe vaccines do cause some side effects. Or maybe they're not really that effective. That's what people were kicked off for 5 years.
Well, I was personally censored by the Biden White House for my commentary around COVID. It's still I'm as passionate as you are about it. I will never forget it. And there's still a lot of people who are still impacted by it to this day. There are people that didn't get to see their loved ones pass away because they couldn't go into the nursing home. People that missed the birth of their children because they couldn't have their partner be in the room with them. This absolutely destroyed a generation, and I would say multiple generations if you really consider the lasting long-term impacts.
Yeah.
But you brought up YouTube. Not only could you not post about COVID stuff, up until maybe a year ago, I know certainly for our YouTube channel, we couldn't post about women's sports either.
Yeah.
So there was another layer of censorship that's somewhat falling away now, but not entirely.
Definitely not entirely. I mean, we were banned from TikTok last summer. We still haven't gotten back on because we ran an ad that said, if you think it isn't fair or safe for men to compete in women's sports, they said that was hate speech.
Isn't it interesting that the Chinese Communist government, which by the way doesn't co-sign any of this trans,
of course not,
they don't co-sign it in their country, but they really want to fund it in ours.
Yeah, they want to poke the bear and have everybody fight. It causes dissension, and
confusion.
Yeah, it causes confusion. It gets us all fighting with each other. But yeah, we were kicked off within hours of opening an account on TikTok, an ad account, and still have not been let back on. Every once in a while we try again with a new ad and they 4 hours later tell us you can't run that either. So no, it certainly hasn't stopped. And like I said, the way the mainstream media covers this issue is still so incredibly biased,
Well, they also don't want to admit their failures and they don't want to admit they're wrong. The same people who there are some people who still say that Biden was fit as a fiddle and there was no signs of slippage. I mean, those are the same people.
Well, they're implicating themselves because they were the ones who covered. But for instance, the U.S. Olympic Committee, I don't remember, I think it's about 2 months ago at this point, they have set a rule now that there are no males in women's sports. It's not just trans-identified males, but there have been tons of males with DSDs or different, like Caster Semenya. So the USOPC has set a rule now, but the way this is covered in the New York Times or NPR is trans women banned from sports. That is not what has happened at all. You see the bias there. First of all, it's males who are barred from competing in women's sports. They can compete in men's because they are men. So that is still the angle that the legacy media takes. And I think until we can overcome that, I think that's a big part of it because that kind of frames the public debate. We like it or not, those are trusted sources for the vast majority of Americans. Not me, but.
What I think is interesting also is that Democrats, when you ask them about this issue, and I do often, I do usually weekly Liberal Tuesday episodes, and this is always a part of it, because I talk to a variety of liberals, and I'll have some that are they are very passionate about it, and they're like, nope, trans women are women, and we fight for them, whatever. You have those people. I actually give those people more credit. Then you have the others that say, this is a Republican issue. This is a Republican talking point. And I kindly remind them, we didn't make this an issue. We didn't say, let's throw men in women's sports so we can make it a political issue. You did it.
Right.
We're speaking common sense. Like, the Republicans are weaponizing the issue to win elections. Like, you guys could easily fix that. You could easily take away the talking point from us, and we would appreciate it. Because then we wouldn't have to fight the battle anymore. But do you think it's interesting the way that they try to shape this as...
as us. Yeah.
As us versus them, Republican versus Democrat. It's like, I thought you guys were for women, so I'm a little confused. We had to take up the mantle. We didn't ask to.
Right. It's reality versus lies. This should never have been political. This is about basic scientific fact and material reality. I think just last week there was Ezra Klein did an interview with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he said exactly what you're saying, which is, well, what are we going to do about this? Because the Republicans are going to continue to weaponize it. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Or they're never going to let it go. And I would argue women are not going to let this go.
Yeah.
Republican, like I said, I just came back from a radical feminist conference. They are not letting this go either. And I think we're all happy to stand together, even if we disagree on some things, to fight for biological reality. It's not Republicans. Women are not going to let this go because you're taking our basic rights away that we fought for 50 years at least.
Yeah, at least.
But, and then you have like the Malcolm Gladwell's, I'm sure you saw that whole thing, where he says, I always knew, and I didn't say it. I was cowed. I think that was the language he used. And I think we're going to see more of that. And I'm inclined to say, if somebody's willing to admit it, I'm inclined to welcome them. Because if you shame them, then nobody else is going to come out and admit it. And yet, he's Malcolm Gladwell. He has sold over 20 million books. He's spent thousands of weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Give me a break. Say the thing.
Well, I love your point on that because the other side is going to have to be the one that I think brings this to a close. I think it will still be an issue until the left decides that they're going to come to the side of sanity. Because I think the right alone, we will fight legislatively, the right and women that consider themselves to be on the right side of this issue, they will continue to fight. But until you have the big voices on the left or the big voices in leftist sports come out and say something about it, I don't think the issue will go away. But I think that they could quickly make it go away.
Yeah, we're not giving up. So we're not giving up until material reality is restored to this conversation. And we'll just chip away at it. You know, every day more people join the fight. So we'll just keep going. But yeah, it could go away overnight. It could. I don't know what they're so scared. Well, I know what they're scared of. They're scared of the activist class. I mean, Gavin Newsom it was Gavin's podcast in his conversation with Charlie a few months ago, I think back in April, said it's not fair. And now he's suing the federal government to allow in his state boys to continue to compete in girls' sports. He's just catering to the activist class. They're terrified of them. I mean, this is a man with no backbone, so I wouldn't expect anything else. He's the slimiest.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So I think we have a battle on our hands, and I think we're just going to grow it. You know, we're going to grow the movement. We're going to get more and more people to stand up and say, not my daughter. I believe in biological reality, and it's going to happen really slowly and then all at once. I don't know what the trigger will be, though.
Last question before we look at some of your items.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that more fathers haven't been vocal about this?
It's a great question.
I mean, we have a lot of young women that are standing up for themselves, high school, college level, standing up for themselves. But I would think that as much as this is a women's issue, this is also not only a parental issue, but dads are fiercely protective of their daughters. And I'm actually surprised that more fathers haven't been vocal about this.
Yeah, we need the men.
Yeah.
We need the men. And more standing up as they see what their daughters may be subjected to. So good men across the country are starting to stand up. But yeah, we need men. We need women. We need kids. But I think at the end of the day, you know, I was early to stand up for abuse in gymnastics. And then when the Larry Nassar story broke, you know, the young women who broke that story, they were unknown athletes. We call them the army of survivors. It wasn't the famous ones. It wasn't the Olympians. They didn't want to risk their reputations. That's going to be the same here. It's going to be an army of young women across this country, and it's going to be too big to ignore.
Yeah. Well, and it's growing every day, and in large part because you've given them not only a message, and not only have you fought for this, but you've given them a brand to stand behind too. And that's a big part of it, is being able to show your support and not only say it, but show it. And you can show it subtly. Yeah,
it makes it easy. You just, because some people don't know what to say, right? You don't know what to say, but you can wear the T-shirt. And then it forces you to have a conversation if somebody asks you about it. It's like this
Yeah.
like triggering mechanism in a good way. And
Yeah.
what I tell people is 9 times out of 10, if you wear it to your daughter's soccer game, someone's going to lean in and say, I agree with you. And you'd be
Yeah.
surprised. And then it's like a light bulb goes off because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'm allowed to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do that every day in our communities. And I think it's happening. And what I really want to do with the young girls who do stand up is give them a sense of community and support, because sometimes they're the only ones in their town willing to do it. So we scoop them up, and Riley's been a great help there. So, you know, if we want her, if I ask her to talk to someone, give them a little bit of a cheerleading, she'll do it. I do it. It's a community we're building, and it gives people a home.
You're right. No, it does. And it's a fantastic movement. But I want to look at some of the items as
Sure.
well, because
I'm gonna move
as you
this
mentioned,
slow.
they're beautiful items, and it's got a message, but it's not just the message. It's also,
So I brought some stuff for you.
oh, wow.
This
Oh, and I
is
love
all
that.
for our holiday. So see,
And it's
kinda
so
subtle.
cute. It is. I do like the way that it's subtle, but it's, you know, it's there,
It
right?
is.
But it's still
Some
cute.
Stuff is far less subtle. I brought you.
Yeah.
more
Ooh,
elegant.
I love that. I was admiring your zip up when you came in. And I love the details that you put on this stuff too, because as you mentioned, you didn't just slap something on here.
Look
You know,
at
it's
the
like-
zipper, how pretty that is.
Yeah,
You
it's
see
like
the
cute little
branding on there?
details.
Yeah, I wasn't
I
totally
love
sure
all
what you
that.
like, but it'll get cold here soon.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, I love that.
And I thought you might like.
And I love those socks. Oh, they're so cute. Yes. Well, and you know,
Either give you a high five or give you a sneer.
Jennifer, if they know who I am, trust me, this is going to be the least egregious thing that they have to say to me. It's going to be
Awesome.
the XXXY.
Good,
Trust
good,
me, I have.
good.
They don't
Lots
like
of
me for a
enemies.
lot of
Yeah,
reasons,
I can
but you know,
imagine.
it's important that we all stand up, and it's important that we all say something.
I think it just normalizes it. It's like
does.
this thing that most Americans agree with and are too afraid to say. And you see someone out and it just makes it normal. It's like, oh, I can say that?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
people can.
You can.
And you're right, and I love the way that you've linked standing up and free speech with a brand and a message, and you're the perfect person to do it. And you and Riley work so closely together, and your ads are wonderful. I mean, it's world-class stuff. It's not
Thank
just
you.
thrown
That's
together. You know, it's very much world-class stuff. So,
Thank
and we
you.
appreciate your support of OutKick as well, and we'll always
You guys have
support
been
the
awesome.
endeavor. I mean, that's one of our major crusades. I would say OutKick has really been on the forefront of calling a lot of this stuff out when the rest of sports media refused.
I believe you were the only ones and still are.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean,
think-
there are some folks that have come out, but OutKick, when it wasn't
First.
popular,
For sure, first. And you were covering the stories of young women who were, you know, suing and standing up. Young girls, 15, 16-year-old. You guys were the only ones covering the stories. That's why I read about it first. So thank you guys for that work.
Well, and we will continue to, because the fight is far from over. I think a lot of people thought this was a done deal after this last election, but it's far from over, and there's still a lot of work to do. So
they ain't giving up.
yeah. Well, thank you for your advocacy and
Yeah.
you know, for being a supporter of OutKick as well. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this episode. But guys, remember, you can go to XXXY Athletics. You can check out all of their merchandise. It's wonderful stuff. It's an athletic brand that stands up for free speech and women's sports. It's XXXY Athletics. The clothes are high quality, as you've seen. You make a statement, you stand with women and girls, you stand for fairness in sports, you stand for common sense, and you don't have to sacrifice fit, quality, performance to wear those values. It makes world-class workout gear with a message. We've got the legit leggings, they're moisture wicking. As Jennifer said, you can run marathons in them, you can work out in them, the fit is great, and it holds you in like you want all of your athletic wear to do, but it doesn't hold you back, and you're sending a message. It's a subtle one, but it's an important one. But men, we didn't leave men out because we are equal opportunity. Men, like we just got done talking about, men need to stand up for this as well. Women are going to fight the fight, but we need men alongside of us. But there's also merch for men and items for men. The Courageous Core Short, everything you need in a workout short. It's high performance, secure pockets, quick drying. You'll barely know they're there. So we got the men taken care of too. And as we just showed you, great casual stuff. The logo tee with the XXXY, subtle, but it makes a point. You take a stance. So you have an athletic brand that you can stand up for women, fair competition, free speech. So make sure you head to thetruthfits.com. That's truthfits.com. And you can enter promo code OutKick20, get 20% off. A lot of holiday stuff there as well. Thetruthfits.com. Also, make sure you go to our YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Like and subscribe. We're going to keep standing up for women and girls and against the insanity. That's going to do it for us from Nashville. God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. For more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Just click right here so you never miss a beat. I will be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.